So, we will start the class today with Kubla Khan. Okay. Did you all read the poem once?
Yes, sir.
Did you like it?
Yes, sir.
Great. So, you know what? I thought of playing this video for you, and it has nothing to do with the poem. Maybe it has a lot to do with the poem. We don't know. We'll explore it. You all seen this movie, Beautiful Mind?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, some of you. Okay. So I'm going to ask him to play that the final climax scene, which is the Nobel acceptance speech by John Nash. Okay. I see lots of connection between both the poems in some way, and it's a long legacy of history of genius, if you like, poetic genius or mathematic genius and so on. But let's say how and why there is a connection, and let's spend the rest of the hour on teasing out the meaning. Okay. Great. Did you all like it, the video? Well, let me put it this way. I see connections, but do you also see connection between this poem that we are going to read and this video? Soham?
Yes, sir. So,
In what way, my dear?
he questions reason, how we perceive reason in
Hmm.
everyday life. So, I think Kubla Khan is also a celebration of the beyonds of reason that we perceive every day.
Hmm.
And in that sense, I find that they are connected.
Fantastic. Anyone else wants to chip in? Okay. Others, please. Rashi?
Sir, there was this line that really caught my attention. It is only under mysterious equations of love that ideological reasons are found. And I think it relates to Coleridge a lot, because even he had histories of love and then his histories of wandering, where we see his addiction to opium and his trance that we find in this poem.
Fantastic. So that's the point. Actually, we have been doing this course for a while. Now, in some sense, we have come to a point where we are able to see a long intellectual history. See, this movie came 10-15 years ago. What do you think? 10 years ago? Yeah, 20 years ago. Yeah. And Kubla Khan, in some sense, 200 years ago. So, in a sense, when we do this connect, we do a connect of a long tradition, intellectual tradition or history, from Coleridge to John Nash. We have, in some sense, want to understand reason, as Rashi identified it very clearly. In some sense, reason has its shades. Reason is not 1 + 1 is 2. Come on, that's not how life works. Or even math doesn't work. If you ask a mathematician what is 1 + 1, maybe if you ask a PhD in math what is 1 + 1, maybe that person may be thinking, oh my God, he is getting me into a trap. Maybe he's talking about the problem of infinity. That is why he is trapping me. Then he or she will think 50,000 times before answering, because that is their domain, and math involves a lot of intuition. In John Nash's case, in the mysterious equations of love, he found reason, and he points at his wife most gratefully and says, you are my reason. Well, you may call this a cinematic melodrama, Tamil masala stuff, maybe, but what is more important is he talks about his journey between the physical, that is the table, desk and all this math and all that, count things, geometrical shapes, metaphysical, that which lies beyond this physical, such as intuition, emotion, irrational, and delusional, that is belief, a strong belief in something that exists. And back, he says, that is the foundation of his thought. You know what? Incidentally, this poem Kubla Khan comes under what people call mystery poems. It's good that Rashi pointed us to mysterious equations of love and so on. This too, Kubla Khan too, is under what called mystery poems, the other one being conversation poems. 18th century was an important century and is still an important century for us, because it is 18th century when disciplines started getting bifurcated. Famous Western universities like Oxford and Cambridge and beyond, they started developing, even Cambridge Royal Society of Sciences started recognizing specializations: chemistry, biochemistry, physics, biology, anatomy, math and so on. That means science was no more just a philosophy of nature, but a discipline in itself. Naturally, those who were in the creative field or even logic field or math field, they were reading a lot on science's discovery, just as we would in a general way know about genetics. They were knowing a lot about specializations and chemistry of the mind and chemistry of the body, blood and so on. This was, and Coleridge was not an exemption. You got me? So, he was in some sense reading about addiction. Apart from being addicted, he tried opium a lot. Did you listen to that lecture that I sent about Nancy Anderson? Some of you? What did you think, my dear? Was it interesting? What was the reactions of and they were constantly playing Kubla Khan in the background, right? Who listened to it? Ashwati, did you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What do you thought? How do you thought it was? What do you think? On creativity.
I was trying to comprehend about how the context of we discussing Kubla Khan in the context of say reason, disability, or how we deal with how mind deals with reason.
Yeah.
And
And creativity, right?
yes.
Uh-huh.
So how you associate creativity with, say, last classes we talked about autistic genius or those kinds of. So when I was trying to connect it with our disability class in particular, just thinking about how we are going to discuss it in a context like this.
Correct. Correct. Very good. So, in the Western world, from Coleridge to John Nash, they have a puzzle about what is creativity and where does creativity emerges in the first place. In the Indian side of matters, which we will discuss in another class, in Indian scenario it is about aesthetics. What sort of emotion give rise to what sort of creative work? For example, karuna or compassion, what does it give rise to, for example? Or what kind of erotic love, what kind of literary forms it gives rise to. So, Indian imagination about creativity is about all that, which we will not bother about at the moment. In the Western world, they are always thinking about where does creativity come from. In the Nancy Anderson, you remember she cites the example of Coleridge having opium, and he gets a grand vision of Kubla Khan, more than 370 lines. He has this grand idea doing the rounds in the head, and suddenly somebody knocks the door, everything vanishes, and then he ends up writing this 54 lines. Did you hear that part? So, well, this is a legend. These are the myths doing around Kubla Khan. It may be true, it may not be true also.
I think he wrote it in some of it in his preface to the book.
Yeah,
He published it.
yes, that his correct. Some say he made it up. He was reading a lot about opium, reading a lot about Mongolian Empire, tourist books and so on. So, he made it up as though he is a genius, just like that you write, but some say it could be true, but we can never be true. But what is true is this kind of discourse around creativity, that is what we should be concerned about. Okay? So, make no mistake, Coleridge suffered from immense pain, opium withdrawal and opium addiction and several other conditions. The problem with this kind of discussion about creative genius, in John Nash's case, you either attribute everything to his schizophrenia. Oh, yeah, he was schizophrenic and therefore he was able to come with game theory. In Coleridge's case, you attribute everything to his opium. But that is basic nonsense. Nash could have done without schizophrenia. He could have become a mathematical genius and contribution, but we cannot otherwise also deny that he drew sustenance from intellectual sustenance from schizophrenia as much as his work on math. Okay? So, we have to recognize that part. Okay. Having said that, let us do some close reading of the poem and then tease out what it has to do with disability studies, or alternatively said, in what way a disability studies framework enable a rich literary understanding of Kubla Khan. Very good. Can one of you read the poem aloud for the class so that we can take it forward? What do you think? Ashwati, do you want to do that?
Yes.
Yeah. All of us should follow Ashwati now.
In Sanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alp, the sacred river, ran through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. So twice 5 miles of fertile ground, with walls and towers were girdled around, and there were gardens bright with sinuous rills. There blossomed many an incense-bearing tree, and here were forests ancient as the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery. But oh, the deep romantic chasm which slanted down the green hill athwart a Sedon cover. A savage place, as holy and enchanted as ever beneath a waning moon was haunted by woman wailing for her demon lover. And from this chasm, with ceaseless turmoil seething, as if this earth in fast thick hands were breathing, a mighty fountain momentarily was forced, amid whose swift half-intermittent burst, huge fragments vaulted like rebounding hail, or chaffy grain beneath the thresher's flame, and mid these dancing rocks at once and ever, it flung up momentarily the sacred river. 5 miles meandering with a mazy motion, through wood and dale the sacred river ran, then reached the caverns, measureless to man, and sank in tumult to a lifeless ocean. And amid this tumult, Kubla heard from far ancestral voices prophesying war. The shadow of the dome of pleasure floated midway on the waves, where was heard the mingled measure from the fountain and the caves. It was a miracle of rare device, a sunny pleasure dome with caves of ice. A damsel with a dulcimer in a vision once I saw. It was an Abyssinian maid, and on her dulcimer she played, singing of Mount Abora. Could I revive within me her symphony and song? To such a deep delight it would win me, that with music loud and long, I would build that dome in air, that sunny dome, those caves of ice, and all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, beware, beware. His splashing eyes, his floating hair, weave a circle round him thrice, and close your eyes with holy dread, for he on honeydew hath fed, and drunk the milk of paradise.
And drunk the milk of paradise. Thank you. Okay, very good. So, let me read a few lines, line by line, and do some close reading. Will you all follow with me? Are you all on mobile? Yeah. Okay. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alf, the sacred river, ran through caverns measureless to man. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree. See, it seems Coleridge was reading a lot about this Mongolian emperor Kubla Khan, who lived in 13th century. He had lots of recourse to tourist notes, stories, fantasies, and so on. In some sense, this poem takes away straight to an imaginative place called Xanadu. Anglicized pronunciation, that's all right. It seems that place, like the biblical creation, let there be light, and there was light, right? A similar process, it was created by an act of decree. Do you see that? Decree. Decree is a formal word that usually associated with state, the decree of the emperor. It's an order. Let there be Xanadu, and there was it, Xanadu. That kind of a stately, again, a stately pleasure dome. Well, a dome full of pleasure inside, in some sense, an imaginative world where only pleasure can exist, pleasure of all kinds. Okay? Maybe heaven, where even the milk of paradise, amudam in Tamil, elixir, if you like, is there. After decree there is a colon, mind you, which means lots of things are going to follow. Like what? Where Alf, the sacred river Kama, ran through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. Gosh, it's going to the bottom of everything, downless to a sunless sea. Bottom of the ocean, bottom of imagination, caverns, bottom of the mind, caverns measureless to man, hitherto unforeseen place. Look at the structure. So this is why people say, well, Coleridge might have said he has written out of opium addiction or opium influence, but look at the formal structure. A stately pleasure dome decree. A stately pleasure dome decree, iambic tetrameter. What is an iamb? Very good. Short, long, short, long, short, long, that kind. Like an emperor walking with one left foot, he will keep a long right foot, one left foot on long right foot. Tuck, tong, like that. Why? It's you have to understand this. See, we need to look at why this kind of a tradition emerged in the first place in the Western world. It's a rhythm. If you can see, Western dances are usually couple dance, minuet, from minuet to salsa. Good salsa dancers here? Well, so and each, for example, if you take a classical minuet, students of Western music will know, it has to be carefully orchestrated when in a couple, when one couple is doing short long rhythm, the other couple on the other side should be doing long short, so that both meet face to face and they withdraw. It is a kind of a orchestration. But in the iamb, which Rashi pointed us, short long, it's also called rhyme royal, an emperor's feet, as it were, majestically walking. Tiger, tiger, burning bright, like tiger majestically walking. So all these romanticists grabbed this iamb so that anything that has to do with majesty, Xanadu's empire. You use short long, a majestic feat, sound of a majestic feat, as it were, with a colon, stately pleasure dome decree. I am saying, colon, you all listen, I am a title of the essay, I am the title of this empire, I am everything. Let there be Xanadu, and there was Xanadu with pleasure dome. Emperor says that with reason's might. There is no second opinion to emperor's reason, okay? So naturally, this guy got thinks, this guy meaning Coleridge, even during influence, opium, let's assume he is influenced. Still this rhyme royal pattern. Tetra meaning four iambs. A stately one, a short long, a stately pleasure dome decree. One word is not one syllable, it has to do with the sound. So what happens? The first part of the story where rhyme royal happens, the reasons, some kind of a pleasure dome is established. At this moment, it's quite too nice to make some distinctions. What is the distinction between imagination, fantasy, hallucination, delusion, fantasy, all that? Am I making sense? See, let's walk one by one. Okay? Imagination. What is imagination? May I ask?
I can't quite phrase it.
Yeah, it's very hard to. How can you define? Suppose I ask somebody, what is head? Then it's quite difficult to immediately say. Anyone wants to try? What is imagination? Very good. That's fine. Because if you ask about a simple word like that, it's very hard. Let me try for you, okay? Imagination is seeing something which is not here. Does that make sense? For example, I am imagining maybe a dinner in Delhi, which is quite possible, but not happening at the moment, Imagination also has to do with coming up with something which is not there. All entrepreneurial activities are imagination, meaning creating a new poetry. Before Coleridge, this poem did not exist, right? It is an act of imagination. All rational sciences need imagination to do new things, new formulaics, formulas, new objects, new things, and so on. In which case, how it is different from other things? For example, hallucination. What is hallucination? Soham?
Hallucination can be defined as viewing something that is not exactly physically present to the viewer.
Yes.
So and some sense of human agency in imagination, while hallucination, I think it's just imagination not under our control.
Sanjay, very good. Have you come? Very good. That is hallucination. Did you get frightened?
Some sense of coercion.
So I was actually able to see, Sanjay, which you were not able to see, and then I was acting on that with, she said correctly, agency, right? You said agency, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, your fuller agency is involved. The notorious Pokemon Go. Did you all play it? No. Good. My students are good, yeah. But they are lying, I know. Is that true, Ashwati?
No, sir, I haven't even.
Okay. Pokemon Go. Whatever that means, yeah. This Pokemon Go, I want to play. Maybe you can help me to play it. See, there is a $1 billion industry which is emerging now. Apple is going to come up with a virtual machine to tap into human tendency to want to hallucinate, indulge without being there, in full sensory pleasure dome as it were. So each Apple machine is going to be a pleasure dome where you actually live in something which is not there, in its fullest eros and completeness. Okay? So that's hallucination. So we saw imagination. So in an act of imagination, what happened? Xanadu emerged. Let there be Xanadu, and there was. And what is going to happen there? Down, let me read the next stanza, okay? So twice 5 miles of fertile ground, with walls and towers were girdled round, and there were gardens bright with sinuous rills, where blossomed many an incense-bearing tree, and here were forests ancient as the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery. Ha! Full description of this Xanadu. It was surrounded by hills, blossom, forests, sunny spots of forestry, and so on. But now comes the interesting part. Just think about hallucination and all that, okay? But oh, that deep romantic chasm which slanted down the green hill athwart a cedarn cover! Exclamation mark. A savage place, as holy as an enchanted, as ere beneath a waning moon was haunted by woman's wailing for demon lover. Gosh, see, look at all these things. This guy now has created the pleasure dome by an act of decree from the Kubla Khan. But within that Xanadu, it's not a kingdom. King is not ruling. It is ruled by all acts of pleasure and creativity. And one of the male fantasy, okay, is woman wailing for her female lover. And from this chasm with ceaseless turmoil seething, as if this earth in fast thick pants were breathing, a mighty fountain momently was forced, amid whose swift half-intermitted bursts, huge fragments vaulted like a rebounding hail, or chaffy green beneath the thresher's flail. It's kind of, it's talking about, in some sense, orgasm of this woman wailing for lover, orgasm of the earth, spewing, spitting, throwing away, swift half-intermitted burst, huge fragments vault like rebouncing hail, a chaffy green beneath the thresher's flame, and amid the dancing rocks at once and ever, it flung up momently the sacred river. If like, the poetic narrator, the protagonist, is already in that place, in some sense witness to male fantasy in all its rich, multisensory, overwhelming multisensory deluge, right from female moaning to earth heaving to winds to the gust and rapidity of earth, water, fire, sun, everything. Very geographical symbolism, symbolism of human body, especially the female body, and meeting the fantasy of the male who is into Xanadu already. So now that makes me ask the question, what is fantasy? In some sense, fantasy is about daydream. It is about, if you like, Freud, as Freud would put it, it's a kind of a wish fulfillment. The Romantic Age's imagination with female emotion, female matters about sexuality to birthing to, and their intrinsic difference from a man's reason or decree. You are able to see it now? And so on it goes. Let me also go. But you see, the meter has shifted now. I was saying iambic tetrameter, but now it has shifted to iambic pentameter. What does it matter? What's a big deal about shifting meter? Well, it also suggests the chaotic, orgasmic nature of Xanadu's pleasure dome. It's irrational, it's beyond the degree, it is sexualized, it is a fantasy world, and so on. Let me go on. Through wood and dale the sacred river ran, then reached the caverns measureless to man. It's talking about the sacred river now, sacred. Again, sacred is sacred is beyond reason, okay? To me, something is sacred, that's it. There's no question about it. But the problem is, what is sacred to me need not be sacred to you. There should be tolerance. Our huge debates about cow and other things. involve this kind of matters, and sank into tumult to a lifeless ocean. And mid this tumult, Kubla heard from far ancestral voices professing war, and shadow of the dome of pleasure floated midway on the waves, where was heard the mingles measure from the fountain and the caves. Look at the size of the lines now. They have shrunk as though they were floating on water. So different fantasies actually. One which in the larger imagination Xanadu, then the pleasures of Xanadu, then as though this thing is floating on water. It was a miracle of rare device, a sunny pleasure dome with caves of ice, a damsel with a dulcimer in a vision once I saw. Look at this word vision. It's about a poet. Did you see the shift in voice? In a vision once I saw, colon. Hereafter, I am afraid it is going to be autobiography. Do you all agree? In a vision once I saw. Until then, until now, it was irrationality, fantasy, imagination, all in the shape of formal introduction, formal rhyme patterns and so on. But now on, it is going to be about poet's own hallucination. In a vision once I saw. Again, it is the nature of poetic genius that we are talking about. Well, some children have precocious vision. They are able to see numbers beyond their capacity. At the age of 5, somebody may say Shakespeare upside down, if that is possible. Mozart was autistic, they claim, and so on. What is the nature of the poetic vision here? It was an Abyssinian maid, and on her dulcimer she played, singing of Mount Abora. Could I revive within me her symphony and song? To such a deep delight would win me, that with music loud and long I would build that dome in air, that sunny dome, those caves of ice, and all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, beware, beware. See, again he is talking about one more creative process. How? Suppose you hear one music, most beautiful melody, okay? Say a beautiful Malayalam song or raga in a flute. You go away, it keeps ringing in your head. You want to recreate the happiness that you had while listening to that flute. How can you recreate? You simply have to replay it in your head, right? But if you have to convey the happiness that you heard while listening to the flute on paper, I am afraid that is going to be very difficult. Now we are coming to the heart of creative process. Creative process not only involves imagination, fantasy, delusion. It may also involve recreation, doing the God's work. He heard the Abyssinian maid. I mean, again, all Eastern references, okay? Kubla Khan, Mongol, Abyssinia. Again, modern Europe, 18th century Europe, even now, some fascination with the Orient. That Orient being the safe place of the sacred, the exotic, the charming, the magical, the orgasmic, the creative, and the otherworldly, alokika. So he wants to recreate that creative energy that this Abyssinian maid had. And then what happens? If we could do that, then it is equal to creating the pleasure dome that Xanadu, that Kubla could create by a decree. Kubla had one command. What is that? He is a royal monarch, okay? He can create by the act of decree. But Coleridge, the poetic genius or the poet or the narrator of this poem, has a different command, the art of recreation, the irrational power, the delusional, and so on. So he can create or recreate a pleasure dome based on the song that he heard from the Abyssinian maid. Then if he could do that, what will happen? What will happen? The audience will say, and all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, beware, beware, his flashing eyes, his floating air, weave a circle round him thrice, and close your eyes with holy dread, for he on honey dew hath fed, and drunk the milk of paradise. Look at this. When you actually realize that when the poet can actually build a pleasure dome based on the music he heard, the vision he had, the fantasies, then you will look at him with dread, fear. Oh my God, he's such a poetic genius. He's so different. He's so exotic. He is mine, but so different. If you like, artistic vanity, you know. And he's the one who drank the milk of paradise. That is maybe messenger of creativity, creative genius, and so on. Right. In some sense, we have finished, in some sense, close reading the poem. What do you think about the poem? Did you like it? Confusing? What do you think? Ashwati? No idea. Sorry?
Poetry class, course last semester.
Ah.
So once dealt with it, I think a professor from Madras University
Hmm.
came and took it for us.
Okay.
So this was again like the visions of
Revival.
Yeah, so this the rendering was beautiful.
Okay.
But I was like all the time I was trying to think about what kind of genius is a genuine genius. Like I mean, so say the drug influenced kind. So maybe I'm deviating from the topic, but this one thing just got onto my mind.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to come to that now. Since we have finished close reading, maybe it is not such a bad idea to look at the connection. I can hear some voices. Well, not hallucination, right? Not such a bad idea to see what the hell about disability and disability studies to do with this poem. Well, let me say all these things just as a winding up remark. Okay? So, in some sense we are in the second part of our class dealing with the angle of disability about this poem. 18th century had is a period where lots of travel was happening. Imperial Britain was expanding, ships were going, lots of chaps came from exotic places like India, China, spoke about women, food, exotic lives, poverty, nasty stench, all that from that world. So, all kinds of imagination was spreading. One of the things was about bodily deformity and the looks. Anything that has a new look created or provoked poetic inspiration. For example, the rhyme of the ancient mariner begins with a different looking man, somewhat east looking, with a beard, telling the story, long beard. So, all the marriage party people coming close to him, enraptured, hypnotized, different look, the beware, beware, that kind of getting hypnotized by a different looking person. So, appearance and mutilations, the ill, the sick, the leper, the monster looking, Frankenstein's monster, mind you, it was written at the same time. The gargantuan, the grotesque, they all invited attention, and still they attract our attention. Okay, it is not as though it is lost. That is the first thing about. So, that is the source of creativity and engagement, artistic engagement with audience, which we do not have to forget. The second thing, Ashwati's obsession about hallucination and the drug influence, well, that is equally important. Whether one uses for recreation or addiction or therapy, how does human mind works, how imagination works, how fantasy works, what is the role of madness in creating poetry. Looking at it, there are 2-3 ways of looking at it. Okay? The first way is to see madness as a source of creative genius. Tyagaraja mad in love with Rama, Bhakta Meera, Meera's madness for Krishna, mystical poets, Aurobindo. Very long Indian tradition we have how madness is a source of bhakti, erotic love and other emotions. It's quite a huge tradition actually. Similarly, in the Western world, drug induced or otherwise, mystical imagination to imagine a larger picture beyond the mundane always involved madness. And this poem and the video that we viewed. Audience, directors, the cinema world and the poetic world, art world, is directly and indirectly logged into this intrinsic connection between madness and creativity. The second way is to look at this poem as total bakwas, call it nonsense. Yes, actually this poem is nonsense, all fragments and so on. If I were to write, I will be killed, okay. I am sure I won't write like this. So fragmented. What is this? Your first stanza, some pleasure dome, second some rocks, and third some dulcimer music, fourth stanza. I'll give him 1 out of 10 for the term paper. But that's the cool thing about it. Celebrate nonsense in literature. Nonsense, there is a tradition called nonsense literature actually. It can invoke slapstick humor, it can invoke a pun on rationality, it can be a celebration of irrationality and so on. And third, okay, reclaiming madness, meaning suppose I am called a madman, I will say okay, I am a madman, now I am writing, you listen. A whole autobiographical tradition by mad people reclaiming madness, and they write a rich literature about it.
So,
yeah.
it's almost done.
Yeah. Just finishing up, the last point is just about the influence or otherwise, schizophrenia and other things. Reductionism, this poem is like this because of hallucination and so on. That is one way of seeing at it. Broad way of seeing it is how our discourse of hallucination, schizophrenia, madness influence readership and a critical tradition. So we have to understand all these things. So that's in a nutshell why this poem may be important for our disability studies course. That's all. Thank you.